Everyone's got my thumbs up, so we can go ahead and get started. I was just asking, how was everyone's lunch? Good?
Good.
Awesome. And your other sessions that you caught so far today has been pretty good?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so before we go ahead and get started, today we're going to be talking about marketing and branding, getting a few, covering slight bit on AI, nothing too crazy along those lines, but just sort of at the end, my hope is that once you've left this session, you would have at least got somewhat of a plan in place, whether you're on the producer side, artist management, you're an artist yourself, you're releasing, thinking through your strategy. Sure, you already have a strategy in place, but just sort of reworking and retooling. But also, let's try to make this a little bit more, I guess, instead of me just providing information, if as I'm going through, you're like, hey, that sounds good, but I've done X, Y, Z, and I've gotten this result. Just jump right in as well, because someone else can benefit from something that you're also doing. Before we get started, you want to just go around and just let me know your names real quick.
My name is Davin.
And Gavin, you're an
Oh,
artist?
Davin.
Oh, Davin, okay.
Yeah.
And you're an artist as well?
Yeah.
Okay, what kind of music?
Like
What genre?
Christian hip hop.
Okay. Hip hop? Okay, got it. And what about you?
My name's Karina, and I'm not an artist, but I help manage with DJ here.
Got it. Okay, nice to meet you, Karina. And yourself?
I'm Gianni,
Gianni?
Christian DJ, merch line, and event production.
Then production, merch line, Christian DJ. Awesome. Good job, Gianni. Go ahead.
My name is Melody. I'm not an artist, but I do have a worship ministry that I'm starting, so
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is it going to be called?
I don't know yet.
Ah.
That's where I'm at. We've started doing stuff, but we don't have a name, but we need a name and we want to do more, I guess branding and that kind of thing. So
Nice,
we're in
nice.
the beginning stages.
Love it, love it.
Yeah.
And yourself?
Manny, DJ New Man.
DJ Munan, nice to meet you as well. And I think we're just left with you. What's your name?
Cassie.
Cassie, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Cassie. All right, we can go ahead and jump in. So, quick bit where we're going to be talking about, again, just some highlights on what's trending right now in the news, in the space, branding overview, measuring brand success, a bit on marketing, protecting your brand, and then lastly, a little bit on community building. A little bit about myself. So I'm the founder of Gospel Music Buzz, started in 2015, faith-based marketing and media promotion company. Our slogan is bringing you the buzz in gospel and wholesome content. And we've just been fortunate to be able to, come right in. We've been fortunate to be able to, speak with, interview, work with a lot of the notable artists, whether it's, within the Christian space, film, TV, and so forth. So definitely during the time that we've been doing this, God has been faithful, and we're happy to be here speaking with you guys today. My POV on content. Everyone says content is king. So I want to just push back a little bit on that and just stress a little bit more from community, communication, and consistency. Because while content, I wouldn't say it's becoming common, but what's going to set you apart is quality content, but also building a really trusting community and, communicating with that community on a consistent basis. Okay, so buzzing news highlight. I'm sure we've all seen, if you're big on TikTok and you're doing a whole lot on TikTok right now, you've sort of seen in one way, shape, or form the TikTok ban. If anyone has seen that, then if you're a content creator, you're an artist, you're doing anything at all, you're a DJ, TikTok has broken a lot of artists. TikTok has, it's just a place where a lot of folks are getting monetized. So with anything that you're doing, you definitely want to add TikTok to that strategy with whatever it is that you're doing from that standpoint. Now, the quick blurb here is just that because of the trust factor with the U.S. government and ByteDance being the parent company of TikTok based out in China, and having user data and so forth, the government is basically saying, hey, you have about 270 days. You're either going to sell it to someone that we're going to say is good, the U.S. base company, or you're basically gonna be banned. That's sort of where they're at right now with that coming back in February. Now for that, it's a situation now whereby, either they're gonna do that, they're also suing TikTok, and it's sort of like this, cat and mouse situation that's happening right now. Everyone is waiting to see how that plays out. So the reason why I added this article here is just so that you should always be thinking about what would I do if today all these platforms that I currently have is no longer here. We've seen that with Instagram. A lot of times when Instagram is done, if Instagram is your main source of getting information out, your main source of communicating, if Instagram is done tomorrow, how are you taking folks off of these public platforms onto your own individual funnel? So when we talk about community, we talk about email marketing, we talk about SMS marketing group. The goal at the end of the day, and for many of you who was just in, Jabez's class earlier, he stressed a lot about that as well too, is that, coming from where you're currently at and setting up a funnel to sort of off ramp. You're still gonna communicate on ramp, but you wanna be able to build that into your strategy, because if someone is only creating content for TikTok and now it's gone, what's gonna happen, right? Same thing we were seeing with others. We'll touch a bit on AI in a little bit. Instagram new algorithm, let's talk about it a little bit too. But, for folks that's in the media, such as myself, media platform, really large platform, Instagram in times past has gone ahead and said, hey, we're gonna prioritize your content over individual creators. So if you're an individual creator, you may not have been as large, maybe 1,000, 2,000 something from a follower perspective. Your content, unless you're, paying and you're running ads, your content wasn't being shown to the wider. Instagram, about last week or so, said, hey, here's what we're gonna do. If you're a really large account, or you're repurposing content, such as myself, again, promoting for other artists is not original content unless you're doing one of our podcasts. They're gonna say now, we're gonna now push the small creators, or the creators that historically has not been pushed forward, we're gonna push you now. So if you're doing original content, you've kept the grind, you've been going and going, hey, here's not the time to stop, right? You wanna even ramp it up more, because Instagram now is creating that path forward. So that's something you wanna track, you wanna follow. Same thing we mentioned with TikTok earlier with UGM pulling their music from TikTok. They sort of like rekindle back that, that relationship after 3 or so months afterwards. Again, all about licensing, who's taking what and who's not. But just, from that perspective as well, even if, your label doesn't really like what's happening with a given platform, and they're like, hey, tomorrow I'm gonna pull all these music away, or certain DSPs is not really, connecting with some of the platforms and they wanna pull that information up. And lastly, I mentioned Spotify, because again, if you're an artist, you've seen with the new changes in Spotify, but hey, you gotta have 1,000 streams. If you don't have 1,000 streams for any one of the songs that you currently have uploaded, you're not gonna get a payout. Times past, that wasn't a problem. You got 300 streams, you got 100 streams, it doesn't really matter, right? They're gonna go ahead and you're gonna still get a payout. That's not the case right now. So you gotta keep 1,000 stream all the time. Come on in. You gotta keep 1,000 stream all the time, and you wanna be able to do that. Now, for a lot of artists that's still building their brand, so forth, that's a massive hit right now. They're like, hey, we're now in a situation where we're not, getting that payout, even if it was $5, $10, you're buying coffee, water, whatever, it's still you getting compensated for your art. I get it, there's ministry behind that, but there's also the economics, because when you go into the studio and you want to record, you're not gonna stand there and hold your producer hands and pray and then start recording. He's still gonna want that check at the end of the day. You may still pray, and he's still gonna wanna be paid for his services, right? Come right in. He's still gonna want that. So it's thinking about strategies where you can monetize your craft, monetize what you're doing. So again, you can be a good shepherd of what God has given you so that you can expand on that. Now, the next thing with Spotify now as well is that Spotify is also being sued by the MLC, the Mechanical Royalty Company. Anyone that's not familiar with the MLC, I highly implore you, look up what the MLC is. The MLC has unclaimed funds, $423 million of streaming royalties and other mechanical royalties of where your music might have been tagged, it might have been played somewhere, certain things might have happened, they have collected royalties on your behalf, and you just have not either tagged it correctly. You can do a search on their site, you can sign up for a free account, you can claim it, because if you don't claim it after 3 to 5 years, that now goes back into a separate fund where they're gonna distribute to all the folks on the platform that have claimed that. But the reason why I mentioned the MLC real quick is that the MLC is suing Spotify, because Spotify went ahead and did yet another change. Is it that 1,000 wasn't a lot? They're like, hey, we're gonna now do audiobooks and so forth. So for our dual plan and our professional plan, we're gonna now sort of bundle that. And if they're doing a bundled plan, then guess what? They now don't even have to pay out the same 3 cents that they were paying before. They don't even have to pay that out. They're gonna pay lesser because, hey, it's a bundle deal. MLC is saying, as well as Sony and several others, hey, this here is, you guys, what you're doing is illegal. This shouldn't happen, that shouldn't happen. And right now you're even gouging artists and creators even more. The reason why I kind of like wanted to start with that, just to simply say, if you're in this space and it's something that you're investing time, money, and interest in, you want to follow the necessary, you want to follow BMI, you want to follow MLC, you want to follow, Song Trust, Song Exchange, you want to set post notification, you want to know what all of these folks are saying, because you don't want to be left out the loop, or you don't want to get secondhand information or something that, I might have ran through this, maybe there's a detail or two that I missed, but it's very specific to your use case, so you definitely want to go in and you want to, get that information. All right. Branding overview. So the very short of it is that the branding is a process of just creating your unique identity. So you have a unique identity and you're trying to, decide what is your company, service, whatever it is that you're doing, you have a product. How do you posture that into the marketplace so that you can distinguish yourself from others, or at the same time, just sort of highlight what you're doing? All right, significance, it helps you stand out. The short of it is that now elements of creating a strong brand, right? I mentioned before, from brand identity is that logo, names, distinguishing colors. A lot of times as a brand, what you want to have is what's called your brand palette. You want to have what's specific to your brand, so that if you're working with any designer, if we are working with someone for the first time and they come to us and say, hey, I want you to design XYZ, I'm going to ask, what's your font? What's your brand colors? What's this particular, what's the vision behind your brand? What is all these different things? What's your logo? Because any time you're working with a new designer or you're working with someone, you want to be able to hand this to them and say, hey, brand XYZ, here's my font, here's my logo, here's all these different things. Now you can create for me. This way, everything that you're creating is going to have somewhat of a symmetry. Anything is going to be, for us, you're going to see gold or yellow, you're going to see black, you're going to see you're going to see something that symbolizes a bee buzzing, something like you see the shirt that my son is wearing behind it. What's on your playlist? You're going to see the bee, you see the headphones. It shows something that sort of, simulate us as a brand. Now, brand value, core principle, mission. You should be able to, if you, like you said, the elevator pitch, you're going up in an elevator, you speaking to someone and they go, you may be wearing a shirt or something you print and they say, hey, tell me about that. You don't want to fumble. Well, it's kind of, I think maybe, no, you want to know that, you want to narrow it down, you want to practice it, stand in front of the mirror and think as if you're going to meet this person that may want to invest in you, that may want to support, that God may put something on their heart to say, hey, the next person I'm going to meet that has this love for something, missions, whatever it is, I want to sow into that person. So when you meet that opportunity, you want to be able to just properly and effectively go ahead and say what that is. So run it through. You think it looks too long, shorten it, whatever the case is, but just be able to talk through that. Brand personality. Now, we're thinking character traits of a brand. You may say, hey, I don't know a brand can have character traits. You know, does Pepsi have a character trait? But when we're thinking character traits, you may see people on X, Twitter X, complaining like, hey, you know, I called up so-and-so company, the customer, you know, the customer service person was just nasty. I can't really, you know, they're gonna go to, you know, Yelp or something like, oh, it was just nasty, this was just horrible, I can't believe, blah, blah, blah. That's the characteristic or trait, and it also comes down to the voice and the tone. Anyone that's representing the brand, yourself, you may get a personal assistant, eventually a manager for artists that's working with managers. I always say, you want to have a conversation with your artist, with your booking manager. You want to have a conversation with your, you know, your regular manager, day-to-day business manager, and say, hey, you're representing me as a person. Here are my values. Even before you hire that person, here are my core principles, mission, value as an artist. Do you think you can represent this effectively before we even go forward? Because if that person is always upset, always got an attitude, you always see that, oh gosh, you know, then someone is calling to book and they're just a day like, ah, yes, yeah, can I book? You know, and it's like, no, I don't want to, you know what I mean? So it's like, you want to have these conversations. These things are not, you know, anything that you may think is like, oh my goodness, this is so far-fetched, but it's common, but at the same time, is not always, because you may think, hey, you know, this person knows what I represent as an artist. This person knows X, Y, Z, but at the same time, it's like, you know, do they really know, or did you have that conversation with them? And then brand positioning again, market niche, sort of, you know, your specific brand, where it's occupied, and whether that's, you know, a specific genre of music, or specifically whether you're a CHH, whether you're jazz, whether, you know, whatever it is that you may be, sort of just, you know, latching into that, learning whatever you need to learn with that, connecting to the necessary parties within that, but just embodying what that is. And because again, we're all uniquely created, we don't necessarily have to mimic someone else, because that's just who God created you to be. And unique selling proposition, again, benefits, features, just whatever it is that sets you apart. Again, not saying as an artist you're selling, but at the same time is that you're representing yourself. So you want to ensure that whatever it is that you're doing it with excellence in mind, and you want to be able to represent that well. And again, like I mentioned earlier, is that if there's something I'm saying here, you're like, hey, but I think this or that, just put your hand up, jump in, whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be me, you know, just keep talking and just needing to get a sip of water, because I feel like I'm so joking. All right, speaking about brand. Now, logos we mentioned before, right? We saw Apple sort of started here with a black brand as well too. You don't want to be afraid to evolve. You don't want to be stagnant as a brand, because if you look at Apple, they're like, hey, you know, whatever this is, this just looks wild, but you know, I'm not judging because they're a multi-trillion-dollar company. But they're like, hey, let's sort of go here, like, maybe too much color. Let's go here, let's go there. Same thing with Starbucks. Started there. They had a guy at one point sort of went through. You see here with Instagram, you know, Twitter, evolution into X, Nike, all this other stuff that's happening here. It was actually a pretty cool story even behind that. Like the artist that designed the Nike logo at the time, I think they paid $35 for the logo. They went ahead, exactly. So they paid $35. The person designed it. The, you know, CEO or now CEO just at the time, they're like, you know, I don't think I'm really feeling it. I'm gonna hold on to it. Eventually grew to like it. And the same person that designed it for $35, years later, might have been 10 or so years, they look back around and they basically give that person, like, you know, a bunch of stocks, as well as like a really good symbolic, you know, like a Nike check with like diamonds and all that stuff, just as a means of that. So again, goes along with, you know, and then just my own, you know, brand evolution, right? At one point, you know, I had braids. I'm like, oh, this is cool, you know, I'm doing that thing. I had a little Steve Harvey fro, you know, I had a really dope braid, but then I also had to evolve as a brand. I'm like, well, you know, I'm kind of bald now, right? I got to lean into that, right? And the beard, is much shorter, but at the same time, every process throughout it, you just have to embrace it. So just same thing. If you have a logo right now, you're using your logo and you're like, I don't. You're not married to the logo. You can choose at any given point in time to evolve and to modify your brand, mix it up. Do a poll with your, with your fan base. Like, hey, we're thinking about X, Y, Z. Let's do a vote. Let's do something and just check it out and just have some fun with it. It doesn't have to be so rigid.
I have a question.
Sure.
What's the difference between like the Instagram, like from 2016 and 2022 versus like
That is a great question. And if exactly, the hue is like
It's the angle of the gradient.
yeah, it's really odd the way in which when you look at it at first you're like, I don't really think. But if you sort of look at it, then you're seeing some of the purple that overlap here, and it like exactly, it's kind of like faded on the side. But yeah, the angle of the gradient. This gentleman said it perfect. But yeah, for me, I'm looking at that at first. I'm like, that's kind of the same, but the little details. And I mentioned just now when I said branding, and I wanted to throw this in here as far as claiming your artist profile, right? And you may think, hey, what does that got to do with branding? But every time you're releasing music and the DSP pushes it out, it's going to go to one of the platforms. It's going to go to all these different platforms. You're going to have Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, Audio Mac. It's going to have a bunch of different, ones it's going to be pushed to. But if you're not managing that artist profile on those given platforms, there's a process for each platform where you have to claim it. Once you claim that, if you're doing a rollout and you're releasing something, and many times we were working with artists, and before we start, we were like, hey, let's do an audit of everything. And when I'm doing the audit, I'm like, wait a minute. Spotify may be amazing, but on Audio Mac, the latest song I'm seeing on Audio Mac was 5 years ago. Because the DSP at the time you worked with might have distributed to Audio Mac, and this one didn't, but that's not a problem. You can claim your profile, manually log into Audio Mac, and you can go ahead and upload your music there directly yourself. You can have your album art, your wave, files and so forth, and you can upload it there. So you want to have access to all of them, because they also once you go ahead and do that, you're going to allow you to track your performances, understand your listener demographic, and we're going to get back into that part just now because that's key. Everything that you're doing, you want to be able to just understand those metrics. And just from a branding standpoint, when you're rolling out new music, you may get this really nice photo shoot. You did all of this stuff. You want to have the photo across all of them. So go ahead.
Is there a way to synchronize them?
They're still all separately. As of I'm aware right now, I'm not sure of any solution whereby, because they're all separate companies and separate, for you to be able to push up. But I'm sure with the advent of AI, there's the new AI frontier. Someone is going to come up with some APIs and say, hey, push this photo and upload all of them once you set up. So I'm sure it's coming. If it's not already there, I'm sure it's coming. I just haven't looked into it. But you want to be able to upload your photo. You want to be able to do everything. So when you get those really nice banners that your graphic designer is going to create, you're putting it on YouTube and on Facebook and all over. You want to make sure it's set up and you have the correct music at all the different ones. I'm gonna go through this. I got time. All right, so different marketing channels and their effectiveness. So again, digital marketing, which is what we see a lot, right? It's a lot of emphasis that's placed on social media, email marketing, search engine, SEO optimization, paid ads, everything within this spectrum right now. Then there's still the traditional marketing, spectrum where there's print media, magazines, flyers. Like, you would still be surprised that if you're doing an event and you print out some posters and you print out flyers. I mean, we used to do that a lot. Folks just stopped doing that, but I can't stress that enough. You go to your local barbershop, you go to businesses that you support, that you shop at, you're like, hey, I got this stuff coming up. can I put this up here for a week? Can I put this up? Even if you have to break them off something, boom, can I put this up here? You still don't want to, stop doing that. Broadcast, you're thinking TV, radio, and that broadcast is even expanded because with YouTube, with all, just social media in general, there's a broadcast component there. There's folks now that have, like we've partnered with Enjoy TV, so whenever we do an interview, it's now uploaded to, Amazon Fire and Hulu and all those different Apple, Apple TV and all of that. So like the broadcast factor and all those platforms allow for ads as well too. So that's something to consider in your marketing strategy. Outdoor ads, billboard, again I mentioned flyer, transit ad. I was just on the subway and really, for those that are in New York, you remember what the subway trains used to look like before, and some of the really newer trains that they have in the nicer parts, you're like, oh, wait a minute, now you have these, like, the whole train all the way to the top is like LCD type monitor computers straight across, here, there. So imagine if you took some time to say, hey, I wonder how much it's gonna cost. I'm dropping. I wonder what is it gonna take for me to get my stuff up there. You get it blasted throughout the entire train, and you go into that train and shoot some content. You can do like a mini video, you can do some TikTok, you can really cause I'm not seeing anyone doing that. You can really go off and do your own situation. You can even say, hey, Kid the Wiz and everyone else that be dancing on the train. What is it gonna take for me to book you guys to dance in this train at this time where my ad is running? Boom, you bring them in there and you just go off. So there's different ways to sort of like think about how you're doing that. And with the billboard ads, before it would take a lot of money to put up a billboard in Times Square. Now with
It's like it's not even that expensive.
it's not a lot because of the company that monetize that now.
For his girlfriend's birthday. I
Mhm.
was like, whoa.
Yeah, there's an app. They have the app that works. That you download the photo, you format it correctly, the video clip, you format it, and you upload it, and it tells you the exact time. It's gonna say, hey, at this time it's gonna run for 30 seconds. At this time it's gonna run, and we've done some rollout with folks where we're there, we're shooting content, we're going live. Boom, they have the 30-second spot, and we're videoing. They're playing it, they're holding up the sign. It's New York, you have a bunch of random folks, and hey, you're all celebrating, whatever, like, and you make a moment out of it because that's what you're like, let me decide what I'm gonna do with my budget and how I'm gonna spend it. And the next thing too that I don't see a lot of folks really tapping into is ads on streaming platforms. Spotify, their ad studio, they allow you that you can now promote what you're doing as an artist, promoting your music throughout their ad platform where it can be suggested. Sometimes you might have opened up Spotify and it says, hey, we're suggesting you look at this, who's this person? I've never listened to their music before, but maybe I'll check it out, right? Are you gonna go ahead and do it? Deezer have their brand partnership stuff that does it.
Is there a way to see which marketing strategy is best for your target audience? Should we be analyzing those kind of numbers?
Yes, I'm gonna answer that in two ways. One, off the bat, if someone comes to you and said, hey, this is what it's gonna take, and this is what's best for your audience, they wouldn't really know. Because in order to know what's best, you have to try different things.
Right.
You have to say, hey, let me try some ads on here. Let me try something here. Given this particular strategy, maybe I want to allocate some marketing dollars here. And you now looking at all the different streaming platforms, maybe these are from a streaming DSP is the highest that you have because you're looking at all these different logs every month. You're looking at the alerts, you're looking at everything, and you're like, hey, when I'm pulling it, it's showing me this, but more specifically, like I mentioned with the metrics, it's showing that these particular states, this age demographic, 20 to 32 females, 20 to whatever the case is. So now you're gonna take all of these information, states, I'm gonna go through each and every one of them. This month, look at Spotify, this, and I'm seeing, okay, these are the countries, US, these are the states, these are the and I'm gonna put all of that together, and that's what's helping to facilitate your brand strategy. So in the end, and these are all the stuff that we would say, hey, let's look at all of these, grant us, delegate access, and we're gonna spend some time, and we're gonna look at all that, and we're gonna come back to you and say, so here is where, your audience, this is what your audience base, this is what it looks like, and this is how it's gonna empower you to make the right decision. If that makes sense.
Question.
Sure.
Do you only suggest the ads on streaming? Because I've been like looking into like Google ads and things like that.
No. I don't just suggest the ads on streaming. So even with, like I think I mentioned, with SEO and search engine optimization with Google Ads,
That's
you
basically-
definitely want to do that, because that's what Google Ads runs on top of. And with Google Ads, it allows you to do that. You can push to your website, and then we're gonna touch on a few things. Yep, still got a little time. We can touch, why you want to do that, because it's a massive shift that we're seeing right now, as I mentioned before, when it comes to, looking at platforms, what they're doing, they're setting these, hey, you need 1,000 stream, we're gonna lower your payout, we're gonna do all that. Conversations we were having, even with labels and such, is that everyone is thinking of ways to sort of not necessarily go off platform as an independent artist, but how do you go direct to consumer, right? So how do you build that community that we're gonna jump right into now? How do you sort of like create a strategy? So if Spotify said today, I'm giving you, I'm gonna put a few more zeros in front of that fraction of a cent that we're gonna pay you. Now all of a sudden you're like, well, I've been working so hard on this strategy. I've built up my website. I'm offering all these different things. If I'm gonna drop, I'm telling folks, hey, if you go straight to my website, because I'm pushing with my Google Ads and all that, pushing folks to my website, signing up to my email list, signing up to all this stuff. When I drop, my new stuff is gonna be here for at least 3 weeks before it even hits any of the DSP. So my real supporters, whoever you are, could be 10, could be 50, could be 1,000, whatever it is. My real supporters, here's where you're gonna go, and guess what? For the first 100, that's gonna go ahead and buy this. You can get this new merch that I have. Is only gonna cost you $5. It's only gonna cost you whatever the case is. But you're creating a way where you're saying, hey, I value you for signing up and for going in this direction, but also you're building that off ramp that we mentioned earlier, just to ensure that it's set up that way, so that whatever it is that's happening in the marketplace, you can't control that. I can't control YouTube, I can't control all these different things. I can only control my strategy, and this is what my strategy entails. And then, as I mentioned before, I'm gonna just sort of skip through a few of these. Before you starting a campaign, you wanna decide on your goal. Don't just come, and that's a conversation we're always having. Someone say, hey, I want to market with you. I'm like, well, what's your goal? Well, I want to have 1 million followers. I'm like, well, I can't give you 1 million followers, because anyone that's giving you 1 million followers in 2 days, they're paying for it, and you're gonna get your account shut down, and something bad is gonna happen, and you don't want to go in that direction. But you want to understand your goal, and you want to, gradually build into it. Increase brand awareness. That sounds realistic to me. We can definitely do that. Grow social presence. Sure, we can put a strategy around growing your social presence, and what you have to do with that, creating central location for all social media initiatives. So there's different ways that we can put the relative, stuff in place, tell you, hey, you may need to sign up for this platform, this is what's gonna sort of streamline what you're doing. Conduct a social media audit, like I mentioned. There's certain things you wanna look for, look for in a page to say, hey, this is what I need to have. I wanna have, my link tree. I wanna have all these different things that you wanna have in place with that. Creating a social strategy, just outlining what your social strategy is. And I would say, if you wanna forget everything else here, you wanna have a budget. You wanna have a budget, you wanna be realistic about your budget. Don't go to someone and say, well, I want you to do all of these things, but I don't have a budget. And when that person presents you with the cost, you're like, man, why is this so expensive? Why this, why that? It's like you wanna approach it, you wanna understand, hey, this is sort of what it's gonna cost. And if this month or this quarter, think of it like a business, they have 4 quarters. You said this quarter, I'm only gonna tackle this item. Go into it, be, emphatic, be ready, target that, boom, I'm gonna do this. Same thing with the other one, you go ahead, you set this up, you run through, and you wanna do that, but you definitely wanna have a budget in place. All right, measuring, okay, we're almost there. Measuring brand success. So brand awareness, again, I mentioned before, social media metrics, website traffic. You want to be able to know, if someone is managing your website, have a monthly meeting with them. Hey, how are we looking this month? Which pages on my site did I have the most views? Where are my sources coming from? If I'm doing all these stuff on Instagram and I have a link in my bio on Instagram, is folks clicking the link in my bio?
Right.
Well, there's ways around that, right? There's platforms now that you can set up a strategy. I'm sure you've seen folks that, hey, type the word, comment the word, checklist. Like if all of you go to our page at some point today, Gospel Music Buzz with 3 Z's, like we created a release checklist, and you go to any of our posts that we have there, and you comment the word checklist on any of the posts, it's gonna DM you a link so that you can download the free checklist that we have. Those are other strategies that you can implement, because sometimes you wanna be like, click the link in my bio, hashtag link in bio, hashtag, but sometimes folks don't even wanna take that extra step. You wanna make it real easy for them. If I'm spending all this money doing all this stuff, I'm gonna add that strategy in, and I'm gonna say, comment the word, whatever you want the word to be. When you get that new brand for the name that you're giving your worship collective group, boom, have them comment that word, and once they comment it, then you'll be able to do that, and you'll be able to, go from there. Again, customer loyalty and retention, you're looking at repeat business, subscriber growth. Same thing with sales performance revenue. What I'm thinking for sales performance revenue is checking all your DSP, checking your tune core, whatever it is. How did I do this month? What is it that I did different this month versus last month that I only got, $500 versus the month before when I got $1,000, right? So you want to go back, you want to look at all this event campaign success. You want to look at attendees, whether that's virtual, if you're keeping a monthly, streaming session or something like that. Maybe you have a podcast, you have different ways that you're feeding your audience, not just music, but you're letting them in to you as far as different ways so that they can understand you as a holistic person. You want to check those metrics, feedback and reviews, even if you're DMing folks, fan review and they're, providing you with certain things, you want to be able to sort of take, corroborate all of that and then figure out what sort of work from there. Let me see. Speaking of data insights, again, if you're sending out an email marketing list, there's even standards that you compare yourself against. It's gonna say, government, media, and publishing. The average open rate for email is 34.22. Average click is 4.3. If you're gonna send something out and you're seeing, hey, I'm hovering below this, how do I get up to the standard and then go above the standards? But you sort of have, that's why we have metrics, so we can look at standards and we can compare ourselves against. And again, same thing with that, like when, last month or the month before, we had a campaign where we were pushing, hey, we want to get to 4,000 subscriber. Everything that I was doing, we want to get to 4,000, so we pushed real heavy. We hit that goal of reaching 4,000 subscribers on YouTube, and then, they also send you, like YouTube sends this out if you have a channel month over month. Hey, this is what you did, these are the views, and now you can drill in what are folks looking at and sort of go through. Same thing too. That's just a screenshot from the Facebook ad manager, and it's gonna go through and it's gonna say, hey, these are some of the videos. This video had only 2.3K plays versus that one that had that. But understanding what made one different from the other, and what are your fans gravitating to, what are your supporters gravitating to go from there. And protecting your brand, again, when you're protecting your brand, you're thinking forming an LLC, forming some sort of entity behind that. Copyright, you want to copyright your ownership. Your original works, you want to copyright it. You want to have patents where patents are permissible, and you want to have a trademark, because again, everything that you're doing, folks are going to be, hey, I love this, I love that. If you don't lock it up with a trademark, again, an investment, someone can take that. When we first started with Gospel Music Buzz about 9 or so years ago, a subset of, bloggers and such was like, hey, we like this, do you want to join us? I'm like, well, we can collaborate, but, not from that perspective. I decided not to. They started Gospel Buzz, and they had like a whole bunch of Gospel Buzz with different, international and geographic location. And that became like a confusion for the brand because folks would be like, hey, I got hit up by XYZ. I'm like, well, we're Gospel Music Buzz. What that said to me, when that happened a few years back, I'm like, you know what? Let me go make the investment and get our brand trademark. About a week or two or a few weeks back, rather, we finally got it back in the mail like, hey, our trademark went through. But it's just like, it was just an investment that we had to do just to ensure that you're securing exclusive right to what you're doing, logos, slogans, all of that, and just preventing it from being used.
So I have a question. When
Yeah.
that happened, I'm sorry.
No, you good.
How did you go about like kind of returning that ownership back to yourself once they already did that?
Well, see, they did that, but even though they didn't use the logo, they kind of created just confusion in the marketplace to try to say, hey, now clients are gonna go to you when they're looking at SEO and just kind of like diverting certain things. At the time, we had no leg to stand on. But once you have a trademark, then you can draft letters and you can send the letter and say, hey, you can't do exactly, you can't do this, you can't do that, different things like that. So
You
no,
send it to the person or do you send it
to the brand, whomever the brand is. Yeah, if the brand is a person, then they have a contact information. Yep, you send it directly to them, like, hey, and then you can file it that way. No, again, just listing from community building. We mentioned before, emailing list, Facebook group. Some may say, well, I'm not 50, I don't need a Facebook group. But there's also still, there's. I mean, it's very effective. I love it for events and for streaming for different things. Like, don't dismiss it, right? IG broadcast channels. Broadcast channels are free. You want to set up a broadcast channel on Instagram, which is just a direct way folks subscribe to the broadcast channel. Direct way of you just engaging. You can do audio message. You want to share something that's on your heart. You want to sing a snippet of something, whatever it is. You're directly interfacing with them, and they're seeing a different side of you from what it is. You can be a little bit more informal. SMS chat community, WhatsApp broadcast channel, huge. A lot of big brands. If you make, I don't need WhatsApp. I'm not, international. I'm not here. I'm not in the Caribbean. I'm from Guyana. I'm not in the Caribbean. See, there's a stigma, but that's why you see Meta, Facebook bought WhatsApp. They got Facebook, they got Instagram, they got WhatsApp. So if Zuck is thinking that WhatsApp makes sense, I have to think from a business standpoint. It makes sense because he paid billions for it. So I need to investigate how I can use that to elevate my brand because he's clearly smarter than I am in that respect. So he knows what he's saying. So let's figure that out, right? Again, I mentioned IG broadcast channel, probably pulled that twice. Discord servers, Patreon, all that kind of stuff. Reddit subgroups and different things. So I started going through that. I might be out of time. I'm waiting to see someone comes to pull me off. But benefits of community building, again, increasing loyalty, direct feedback, amplifying their reach and so forth. When it comes to that, I'm not even gonna put a whole lot into that, but basically in the end, we know where AI started going, it's evolving, it's transforming processes from where it's heading to. Some of the bigger names in the space there would be OpenAI, Google has Gemini, there's Claude through Anthropic, Microsoft Copilot, and then there's several other platforms that started build out of that same large language model and started building on top of what they're doing. And some of that is basically, like for a few of these, like let's just say if you say, hey, I want to create really great presentations, you can look up, like Dectopus, Slides Go, Sono AI. You can have something that creates music for you. If you're thinking, hey, I want to know what this sounds like with some horns or with something else, and you don't want to keep running back and forth to the studio, you have that option to be able to do that. Again, Logo AI creates amazing logos. Yep.
So I work in the city, like I work in on Park Avenue, and I take the Metro North, so when I'm walking through Grand Central Terminal, Grammarly is literally everywhere. Like, it's insane, and that was the first thing. Like, one day I was like catching like the 1 a.m. train, and I'm walking through the tunnel, literally Grammarly on the walls, on the ceiling, on the floor.
Exactly.
I'm like, and that's all you see. It's
Yeah.
like they took over because they know a lot of people walk through there.
One would do that, and you add Grammarly to your, to your
Crazy, man.
email. You add the plugin to whatever it is. So as you're writing, you're not thinking. It's helping you to correct. It's helping you to present yourself much more, effectively when you're doing anything. So I would say, again, this is not, if you're into design-wise, there's also Midjourney, which is just doing some amazing things when it comes to video creation and so forth. But which one I wanted to show you a little bit real quick. Again, there's a whole bunch. If you just sort of look up what's there, I say sign up for free trial for a bunch of them, test it out, see what works for you, because this is clearly where everything is heading towards. You don't want to be left behind.
Yeah,
You don't want to be like, some of your, much more, older aunts when they go live or they video call you on FaceTime and they're like, what are you saying? Like, bring it back, position it, make sure I can see you. Like, you want to, exactly, check the lighting. Like, why is it so dark, Uncle? I don't know. Where's the, like, you want to make sure you just, pick one. Say to yourself, yep.
If you get a logo from one of the logo AI, can you still trademark it, or is it owned by?
No. Once you're finished getting it created, there's a checkout process. They're gonna have you create everything and then it's gonna be watermarked. But once you pay for it, then it's your logo.
Okay. And no one else can use it, okay.
No. You're able to pay for it. And then you can modify it if you want to, but then you're able to pay for it. And then you can trademark that, because during the trademark process, they'll review it as well too. When you go to trademark it, they're gonna say who else has this, who else have some of this stuff when you trademark it, and then they'll be able to do that. And we're almost right there, I think. Yes, again, but what I want to show you real quick, and I'll come out of the presentation, again, the checklist, the music release checklist, these are some of the stuff that's on the checklist. So if you just comment the word checklist on our Instagram page, you'll get a free download for that checklist. And a lot of the stuff we mentioned, feel free to follow us, we'll follow you guys back, and we can have a conversation if you want to talk about anything there. Before I jump, right now we're there. This is what I'm going to show you real quick. So the same Sonos AI that I mentioned, I went in, I just typed in here an intro jingle for a podcast about bringing the buzz. I sort of typed in what I wanted. It went through, and it basically just created this.
That's a little question. When you choose AI stuff, are you paying for this? The AI?
You can pay for the service. Yeah, this is the free trial.
Okay. Wow. You get all those options for the free trial.
Yeah, so they give you a certain number of credits for you to be able to sort of go through and do that. But again, the reason why I mentioned that is that there's the ethical part behind AI as well as everything else that's happening. But as a creative, sometimes you think, hey, I don't want AI to do this or to steal that, and I want to upload my vocals or license my vocals. There's a big push in that right now, where this platform's trying to, say, hey, you can license your vocals through us, and anything that's created, you're gonna get a cost, a royalty fee. It's just so much that's going on in the space as it relates. That's why platforms like this is even able to do that. That someone like me that can't sing, I can type in and then boom, look at that, I created this. I really didn't, I just typed a few texts in. But again, it's a whole lot that's happening. I know I sort of rushed through that a little bit in the end because I think we probably might have came up on time, but if you have any questions, whatever the case is, feel free to, reach out, feel free to follow us, send us a message, whatever the case is, and if you have any questions while we wrap, just let me know. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great.
Awesome.